Hello and welcome to another episode of Behavior Nation's Caregiver Education video series. Now, take a moment to imagine a family party. When Mark arrives with his daughter Sophie, all the relatives come to greet the new arrivals. However, instead of greeting them back, Sophie looks away from everyone and says nothing. Her relatives are unsure what to think of her ignoring them, and Mark begins to feel a little embarrassed about his daughter's behavior. Rather than ignoring the greetings for the sake of being rude, it could be that Sophie simply lacks the skills needed to recognize when others are initiating interactions with her and what she needs to do in response. Which leads us to the topic of today's episode, skills deficits. In this video, we will be covering what skills deficits are, how they relate to challenging behavior, and how they can be addressed. First off, what are skills deficits? A skills deficit is something that occurs when a child has not yet learned how to perform a given behavior or action. For example, a young child who has only ever eaten finger foods may not know what to do with a fork when it is first presented to her, and will need to be taught how to use it. Likewise, a child who does not always answer when other people ask him questions may need to be taught to say, "I don't know," when unsure of how to respond. You may be wondering at this point how skills deficits are determined in ABA. When a child's family begins the process of getting services, an initial assessment is conducted by the clinical team that gauges where the child's skills are relative to their peers and what is developmentally expected of children their age. Once the assessment results have been scored and analyzed, a report is created with treatment goals that are directly related to the deficits that are indicated by the assessment process. Then, once a child begins services, additional deficits may be determined based on direct observations made by the clinical team during sessions, as well as concerns brought up by the child's parents and caregivers. A reassessment to gauge the child's general progress and determine other potential deficits is also done prior to the end of each authorization period. If you would like more information on the treatment goal determination process, we will be covering foundational skills and terminal goals in further detail in a future video. Now, on to skills deficits and how they relate to challenging behaviors. Oftentimes, challenging behaviors occur as a result of a child's skills deficits. In other words, instead of thinking of engagement in a challenging behavior like a tantrum, as a child doing it simply to be bad or to give their parents a hard time, start looking at it as a child lacking a more appropriate skills to get their needs met and cope with challenges they may come across in their environment. Some common skills deficits that often lead to challenging behaviors include deficits in expressive communication skills leading a child to cry and tantrum to get their wants and needs met, deficits in receptive communication and listener responding skills leading a child to ignore or not respond to their parents' instructions, and deficits in appropriate play skills leading a child to engage in repetitive behaviors such as spinning cartwheels and lining up items. Now that you understand how skills deficits can lead to challenging behaviors, what can be done to address them? In ABA, the most common approach is to teach the child appropriate replacement skills that address their deficits and serve the same function as the challenging behavior. If you are unsure what we mean by the function of the challenging behavior, or would like a review, feel free to click on the link in the description below to our video on functions of behavior. Some of the most common replacement skills for challenging behaviors taught in ABA include teaching a child how to use their words to communicate, such as saying, "I want water," or "I need a break," instead of engaging in a tantrum. Teaching a child what is expected of them when their parents say to sit down instead of continuing to turn around and ignore the instruction. And teaching a child how to functionally play with a car by pushing it around the floor or rolling it down a ramp instead of only ever turning it over to spin its wheels. At this point, it is important to note that skills deficits do not always lead to challenging behaviors, and that a child who engages in relatively mild to no challenging behaviors can still have skills deficits that, if not addressed, can have significant impact on their development. For instance, a child's inability to attend to an activity can lead to issues with learning and social development because if they cannot attend to things like a classroom lesson being given or a game being played, they are less likely to be able to absorb the information being presented by their teacher or follow along with what is happening in the game. Likewise, deficits in conversation skills can make it hard for a child to socialize with others because most interpersonal interactions involve the ability of not only being able to talk about their own interests, but listening and responding to the interests of others. Additionally, lack of self-help skills such as cleaning up after themselves or knowing how to prepare a simple snack when they are feeling hungry can lead a child to become overly dependent on others to get their needs met. So, given the importance of addressing skills deficits, how does ABA go about skills teaching? ABA utilizes a variety of evidence-based strategies to teach a child the skills they need to succeed, including DTT or discrete child teaching, PRT, pivotal response treatment, and NET, natural environment teaching. You can find more information on these teaching approaches by clicking on their corresponding links in the description below. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. I hope you have found the information to be helpful, and if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your child's clinical team. Send us an email at info@behaviornation.com or give us a call at 844-262-8466. You can also check out our website at www.behaviornation.com for more resources. Have a great rest of your day.